the next story is called The Astronaut and the Fighter Pilot. And I bet you a lot of you know the first part, but I bet you only a few of you know the second part of the story. Now, this story begins with the rocket launch by NASA. And there was a problem with this rocket. Some of the engineers were a little concerned that one of the parts might fail in cold weather. But they'd had a bunch of delays in launches because of weather and delays because of weather and technical difficulties, and so they hadn't been able to do a launch in a while. So there was a lot of pressure to have a success, stop doing all these delays, and go ahead and launch the rocket. Well, the morning of the launch, it was freezing. And the engineer spoke up, one of the engineers spoke up and said, you know, it's a mistake to make this launch. We're afraid that this part is going to fail in cold weather. And the NASA executives and the other executives for these different companies said, well, there's really no data to prove that, so we need to go ahead and do the launch. Well, they launched the rocket, and as the engineer feared, the part failed, the O-ring failed, and the rocket blew up. Well, the bad thing is that rocket was attached to the Challenger, and just over 25 years ago, the Challenger crew, including Dick Scobie, who graduated from Auburn High School in 1957, were killed because the people wanted to stick to an artificial deadline and ignored the safety requirements. And I know there's people here who knew Dick Scobie, and he's a true hero of our city. North Auburn Elementary, where I went to school, was renamed after him. Auburn Airport was renamed after him, and he really deserves our admiration. So let's go forward about 3 years after that. I was an Air Force officer. I was an airport manager at Sembach Air Base, Germany, a little tiny air base near Ramstein. Now, Ramstein is a big air base. They have all kinds of different squadrons, and one of their squadrons was an F-16 fighter squadron. And they had a requirement every quarter to go ahead and do a night flight. Well, the weather in Germany is a lot like our weather, and in the winter, there were a lot of times where they were trying to do their night flight, and the weather just wouldn't support it, so they canceled their night flight. It's coming up to the end of the quarter, and the deputy commander for operations wanted to get in the night flight. He didn't want to have to explain to headquarters why they were late. And there was good weather, but there was one problem, and that's what they call the approach lighting system. Now, if you ever drive by SeaTac, you'll see that there's a set of light bars. So imagine I'm on the runway here. Planes are coming in towards me. There's a light bar way out there, and the light flashes. Then there's another bar closer in. It flashes all the way down to the end of the runway. So it's like a strobe light guiding you in. The only problem is that the last half of the approach lighting system was broken. Usually what happens is when you get to the end of the approach lighting system, there's the runway lights. There you are. You're ready to land. Well, some people said it's a mistake to do this at night because you can't see where the end of the runway is. The deputy commander for operations said, we have this deadline, we need to meet it, so we're going to go ahead and fly it. So that night, they went out and did their night flying. The first F-16 came in, and he just cleared that last light bar. The second plane came in, a young lieutenant, and he clipped the light bar, and he crash landed on the end of the runway. Now, unlike the crew of the Challenger, this lieutenant walked away, and he eventually became a colonel in the United States Air Force. And you wonder, what does that have to do with Auburn? That young lieutenant who crashed but survived was Lieutenant Dick Scobie, the son of our favorite astronaut.